Yeah, good morning. So today we're going to continue our conversation about authentication by talking about JSON web tokens. But before we do that, I want to show you something from yesterday's project, right? I asked that you have that open. If you want to follow along with me, you probably do want to follow along with me. And here's the thing. If I go into our server and hit login, okay, perfect. We're logged in. Now I can go into the users and do send, and yeah, I can see the list of users because I'm logged in, right? But what if I go and either stop the server or somehow get it to restart? Well, I could have just restarted it. But the server's running again, and I'm logged in. I just logged in, right? So if I do that, oh, please log in. Any idea why? What's going on there? Because I just logged in like a few seconds ago. And I do have the cookie, but still, it's just failing. Any takers? Maybe the session is too short. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe we're setting the session. Well, it's 2 minutes. Let's make it 20 minutes instead, right? 20 minutes. I'm gonna save that. Server restart it. Let's go and log in. Let's try this again because that might be a good point. Maybe it was too short. So let's do login. Send that. We're logged in. We should be able to see the users. Perfect. Yep, we see the users. And now let me do a quick restart of the server. RS on NodeMon. We just restarted. Okay. Server restarted. Let's try it again. It hasn't been 20 minutes, so please log in. Probably that's not it. So I'm going to ask another question, though. Are we sure that the client sends the cookie to the server? Are we getting the cookie thing? What is RS? The question is, when you're using NodeMon and you want to restart the server manually, you don't have to stop it and restart it. You just type RS for restart, hit enter, and it will restart the server for you automatically. Black magic-ish, yeah. So let's do a quick review from yesterday, right? How can we store normally common ways of storing session data? Remember that? Remember those? What they were? Can I get some on Slack if you remember common ways to store session data? Yeah, one of them is memory for sure. Another one is memory cache. Or a database. Right. So this is storing session data. So that means that this is the stuff that happens on the client or the server or the cookie. Where's the session data at? Yeah, it's kept on the server. This is why we said we don't care that you have remember the idea of the door key card. We don't care that you have the key card. When you show up at the door, we're gonna check to see if that key card is still available. And the way that we check is we check on the server, right? Because it's not about the cookie. The cookie may have expired. You send that cookie to the server. You may have a valid cookie, but if the server decided to invalidate the session, cookie is not good anymore, even if it was designed for 20 minutes. I mean, our cookie now is supposed to be for 20 minutes, but the server just bounced it, right? Because the session information is not there anymore. So the answer to the question of why are we running into the problem that whenever we restart the server, we lose the ability to see the content, even though we have a valid cookie that we created and it's got 20 minutes in it, it's because the session is being stored in memory. So every time that we restart the server, the session gets wiped out. We don't have a session anymore. It disappears. Does that make sense, that little point right there? So that would mean that if you have 1 million users logged in and your server needs to restart for a patch or whatever, that session data will go away. So all of those millions of users will need, again, hey, wait a minute, where's my camera? Oh, there it goes. That means that all of those millions of users would need to re-log in again. Not a good user experience, right? So what we really want to have is something when you have, the client is stuck into the server, but then the server is interacting with something where the session is stored, right? The session is stored somewhere. And this is normally what you have in production. This is how it works. And this is similar to what we had before. We said the server talking to the database, right? So this is normally what you have. You have another way to persist the session information, the records for the sessions, that is not inside of the server, not on memory. Okay, we mentioned two. So, well, we can use a memory cache server, and this would be a memory cache server. It's probably help. And a database server. We don't have one of this. We need to install a separate server for this, but we do have a database though, right? We're using a database here. It's not a server, but you can think of it that way, right? It's a database. So one way that we could solve this problem would be by persisting our session data not to memory, but to the database. Can we agree on that? That would work, right? Would you like to see how to do that? Would you like to try and figure it out first? Or should we just go for it? I don't see your name on Zoom. I don't know why. But I see you smiling. Orange shirt. Yes. I see you smiling. Oh, Mary. Okay. So does that mean that you want to try and figure it out? Or do you want us to go for it? Okay, so let's just go through it. Right. So in that case, a good place to begin, like if someone came to me and said, hey, Luis, you need to figure out how to do, how to store this session out of memory because this resetting the server, it's not working for me. I would probably go into the documentation for whatever library we're using and say, hey, how can I store my session in the database? Turns out that there are, if you go look in here, there are a set of, this is the Express session documentation. So there is a data store area here somewhere in there. I don't know where. What is it? Compatible session stores. Here it is. Okay, so if you click on that, it's going to take you to the compatible session stores. And you would start like, what am I using? Well, I'm using Microsoft SQL Server. Let me see if there's something for that. We know that we're using Next, right? So what I would probably look is there a way, is there something in here where I can find Next? And there they are. Close the store. Let's see, there's another one that says connect session connects. Yeah. This is a session store using Next.js, which is a SQL query builder. So you can connect to any of the databases like ours just by using this little package right here. I cheated and I have already loaded here for you. Okay. So connect session next. This is the one. But really, I don't want to show you how to do it. I want you to concentrate because this is boilerplate that you're going to have in there, right? It's already going to be done. I want you to concentrate on the process, right? I was asked to do something. I didn't know how to do it. I started on the documentation of the library that I'm using. And if I read through it, I remember that there was something about session stores. So I'm using Next. Let me see if there's something that works with Next. That's it. And I found this, clicked on that, opened this, and it's like, okay, this is how this is used. So definitely we need to install this. I'm just gonna go and copy the name because it's easier than having to type all that. All right, we definitely need to install this. So let's go in here, yarn add. Should this be a development time dependency or this is something that I want in production? Hey, Nick, good job. You found it. Yeah, that's something that I want in production because I want my sessions to work in production, right? This is another thing. Every time you're going to install a package, think about it. Am I going to need this in production? If so, production. If not, dash dash dev. Okay. So we're going to add this connect session connects or next as a production dependency. And now, according to the library documentation, this library needs to know about our session. It's kind of weird because you'll see the library needs to know about the session, and then the session configuration needs to use the library. It's kind of strange. I don't know how that works internally. All I know that they say it's got to be after the session because you need to pass the library a reference to this session. This is all from the documentation, right? We're just not going to go and read it now. You can read it later. But just know that as you bring in the library, you're going to require it, and the library is going to return a function. And this function needs an instance of your session store, of your session, express session library, okay? So connect session connects, added to the boilerplate, yes, for sure. All right, so let's bring it in. Okay, we're gonna call this connects session store. Why the uppercase? Because this is going to return at the end. It's going to return a constructor function. And normally in JavaScript, when we have a constructor function, you might remember that we tend to have that be uppercase, like Pascal casing is called, right, with uppercase letters. So this is why we're naming it that way. Now, again, the next section store. Well, that's not the name of it. It's actually this is the name of it. The connect section next. This thing, when we require it, is going to be a function. So this would be a function, right? And this function, we need to execute that passing our instance of our library that we use for the session. So we could just, what is this called when I have like this, you know, I have something and then you execute it right there. You have seen that before. Currying, yep. So we're gonna curry this thing and we're gonna pass it the session. This is why it needs to come after this line right here, okay? So this is the new line now. Right there. Let me give you a little more real estate. There you go. So that's the first step. Now let's on to use this. And to use this, it's not going to be on the documentation for the library itself. In this case, we need to check at the express session library because it's going to tell you how can I use different stores? How can I change the store that I'm using? And if you went and research down the documentation, you'll see that there is a key for that. So when we configure our session, we're going to add a key for the store. And of course, this is going to be different depending on what storage mechanism you're using. But for this particular one, remember this is returning a constructor function. So what we're going to do is we're going to get an instance of that by newing it up. So we're going to say new next section store, and now it makes sense why we have the uppercase there. And then for this, we could pass an object, a configuration object. And remember, every configuration that you see here, all of those things could come from the environment, could be something that you have in another file. We're doing it here in line so that you see the whole picture of the configuration without too much complexity, okay? But the point is, you need to get us an instance of this. It's important that you don't forget having this new in here. Otherwise, you're gonna get a weird error talking about constructor functions. It's just that new keyword, okay? That is missing. And here, of course, this is gonna ask me, the first thing is gonna tell me, hey, where's my connection to the database under the key next? And we could pass it. In this file, we abstracted away the connection, a configure version of next, you remember that? And we have this in data dbconfig. This bad boy right here happens to have that configure next instance. So this is what we're gonna pass it, okay? So we can pass it right here. Let me do it in line just so that you see that this is totally possible. I'm just grabbing this file. So this would be from, where am I? I'm on the server, so I need to get out, go into data, and then in there is a dbconfig, okay? So we're just bringing in this next that is already configured to connect to our database. Okay, and this is how it's going to be able to go and save information on the database about the session. So that's the first one. Of course, you could extract this away and just pass the variable name. The other one is, and some of them are optional. I don't remember which of those is optional, so we would need to go and read the documentation to see which of them are optional. But you have things like the table name, the seed field name, the table asking you, if I don't have a table to save your sessions, do you want me to create it automatically for you? And you have this interval, which is clearing the expired sessions. Remember yesterday we mentioned there's a bolded text says, well, if you're doing this on the database, you might need to do this manually. And I told you some libraries, this is one of those libraries, is going to handle that for you automatically. Because every time you log in, you create a brand new session, right? But when they expire, that thing would stay and your database would grow. So this library, if you give it an interval in milliseconds, it will, let's say that we give it 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes, it's going to run check and say, hey, any expired sessions. It's just going to run a query. Say, I'm going to delete everything where the expiration date is prior to right now. All of those are expired. So, and it will do that for you. You don't have to worry about it. So those are the four kind of, and this is weird because if you see, this is camel cased, but all of those are lowercase, which is strange. I don't know why they did that, but that's the way it is. So we're gonna configure them. I don't know if they're all required. This one is not. It will just default to that, so we don't have to pass this one. This is gonna default to session, so we don't have to pass table name or seed field name. This we need. We're gonna pass this create table. That's important, right? Create table. We're gonna say true. I'm gonna say yes. If it's not there, just create it for me, please. Don't wait for me to create it. And of course, we want this clear interval thing. And with default, we know it's milliseconds, so the real trick, 1 second, 60 seconds, right? So this is 1 second, this is a minute. Let's say every, I don't know, 15 minutes or so, go and clear out. Okay? Good. So what we have done is we install this, we brought it in and passed the session. This is important. Don't forget this step right here. Pass the session instance to it. And then inside our session config, now we set the store. Remember that new keyword to get an instance and pass an object that has some configuration in it. Okay. So this is for clear out expired sessions in milliseconds. Okay. And the create table, and this is the instance of Kinect that we have configured. It's kind of looking good. I don't know if it works yet, so let's save all these changes and let's go and try it out. How can we try it out? Well, let's do the same thing that we did. Let's go and log in. So we log in. Perfect. Make sure that we can see this. Yep, we can see the users. Okay. And now let's go and restart that server. Server is restarted. The question is, am I still logged in? Yeah, I'll show you the DB config. It's the same one that you have, William, though. It's you have the same file that I have, though. I'll show it in a minute. Straight out, we are still logged in, right? For the next 20 minutes, that session is going to be valid on the server. So as long as you're sending that cookie for a valid session, you're still logged in. This is a much better experience, right? In some cases, you can even go for a whole day, keeping the session alive for a whole 8 or 9 hours, a work day, okay? Questions there? Again, this is the big config that you have. It's the same thing. There's nothing new there. When do you not want to do this? I can think, well, if you have another way of storing a session, but sessions should never be in memory. Servers have the risk of being restarted. So I don't see a valid use case for ever having session other than simplicity when you're kind of learning it. But in production, I would say you always want to stretch away the session information outside of memory. Ah, you should be on WebOps too. Yep. Okay. So go ahead and implement that and let me know when you're done. And then we move on to the tokens for today. This piece and this over here. Those are the changes. By the way, every other session store that you have, if you're using this library, just go and find, like if you want to use Mongo or another, maybe Redis or something else, just go and look the adapter for that on the documentation, and then go and see how do you configure it. That's the key. But it's always going to be on this store key here. It's just how does the library wants to be configured? What is it that you pass in as the object? And that it's it. Shouldn't be, well, sometimes it's hard depending on the documentation, but it should be pretty straightforward because the steps are the same. Looks like we have 17 out of 59, 50-ish, 18. Anybody not done, please say no, unless, or I'm just gonna close this screen and move on to tokens. Okay, cool, I'll wait, I'll wait. The reason I wanna wait is sometimes you miss passing this, right? Doing the curring here, sometimes you miss the new keyword here. Sometimes you do this, like this instead, and all of those little errors, they're gonna give you errors and you might not get it done. And it's important that you have it. Because remember, when you go to labs, remember this. Authentication is not sexy. Don't waste time on this. Take this code that you already have that works for registering and login. Get that done in a few minutes, copy it over, and forget about authentication and authorization. Just concentrate on your project, what makes it special, okay? I know that we say, get it deployed and get authentication on the first day. It should be on the first hour. You should get all that on the first hour and don't worry about it anymore. Just pick away. Pick sessions or pick, I would say, and this is opinion, okay? If I was you, I would use tokens. That's what I would use. Because tokens go across domains really, really well, and you're not gonna run into any weird issues. I would say on the first hour, just take the sample from the tokens from today, incorporate it into your project, and then concentrate on your important code. Yeah, getting an error, that's exactly what I want to see. Do you know what is the error saying? Give it a read, see if you can find the file where the error is coming from. And make sure, of course, that you're basing this on something that used to work before we try to do this. And remember to install the library too. Oh yeah, that's not gonna help. So if you comment out this code, does it work? Is this based on yesterday's code that was working, Randy? Like if you do this, if you comment out this code, boom, and comment out this other code over here, and save that, and try hitting the login and all that, does that still work? Because that means that it's not today's code. Yeah. So did you download the zip file from yesterday, or is it the code that you had at the end of yesterday? Just make sure that you have all the packages installed. Okay. If that worked. So I'll come back to them, okay, in a minute. Now make sure that you have this package, that this is the correct name, installed. Uncomment the line and try it again, see if that works. And then make sure that your code looks like this. You know what time it is? Screen share time. Yay. So we do Brandy and then Alan Ty. Ooh, that's a widescreen monitor that you have there. Well, cannot find module connect session store. The name of the package is connect session next. That's the error that I see there. See line 5. The name of the package is I don't know if we dropped it on Slack though. We drop it on Slack. That's the name of the package. You can go ahead and uncomment the store key now on the session config. Line 22 to 26, I think. Yeah, I think that should be working. Give it a try. Hello world. That works. All right, who's next? All right, you're the only one left. I think everybody else is good. Tim is having fun with the right project. So I would say let's take 5 minutes. Try an experiment on having a couple of breaks instead of only a single break, and see if that helps people on the lecture, right? Instead of walking away, turn off the camera and walk away. So let's take 5 minutes, and I'll see you after the break. All right. So one question is, in production, what would be the advantage of using something like Firebase instead of token? Every time you delegate security, identity to a bigger engineering team than yours that specializes on that, it's a good idea. So just by using Firebase, that means that you don't have to deal with passwords. You don't have to have the responsibility of storing passwords and handling people's identity. So you're delegating that stuff to the experts. Do that if you can. Just use a company that is, I would trust Google engineers better than I would trust most smaller teams, right? Or big ones. Anyways, so let's talk about today, right? I don't know if you have any more questions about this. I guess I'll build good announcements. So let's go back. JSON with tokens. What is a JSON with token? Well, let me show you. Let's see if I have a. This is the site. Yep. Show you a website, and then we go from there. So JSON with token is a string. That's it. If I show you one here, you'll understand what I mean. This is a JSON with token right there. It's just a string of characters. And that string is got 3 parts to it, separated by a dot. Okay. The first one is the header, as you can see right there. It's got some properties that you're gonna set on it. Some are gonna set automatically by a library that we're gonna use for it. It's got a payload, and this is where you can stick information in it. Remember that we did that rec.session, that username. In the world of tokens, that information, any information that you want to share, that you want to keep, it's going to be on the payload. And then it's got a signature. And the idea behind the signature is the token is going to be sent to the client and may or may not be accessible on the client, but let's say that it is accessible on the client. You could potentially change it. Maybe you want to give yourself the role of admin, right? So the signature is what the server is going to use to verify that that token hasn't been tampered with, okay? That it was not modified. That's the idea behind the signature. To guarantee, kind of, a little bit, right? That nobody try to do something weird with your token. Now, there is a fundamental difference between sessions with cookies, right? And tokens when it comes to keeping authenticated users' information. And the fundamental difference is, in the world of sessions, the server is in charge of holding on to the list of logged in users. Session records. But in the world of tokens, and JSON with tokens is one kind of token. That's not the only one. It's the one that we're gonna pick. It's the one that is used for authentication most of the time. But the idea here is, in the world of tokens, the information about the logged in users of the session is gonna be kept on the token instead. There is no sessions in memory. There is no, the server doesn't know. The server is gonna say, I'm gonna give you the card, and I'm not keeping a record or anything. I'm gonna give this card some information, and all I'm gonna do at the door now, instead of calling the server to see, hey, is this still valid? At the door, when I show up with a card, the door itself is just gonna say, let me check the card. And if the card is valid, there's no checking happening anywhere. We're gonna trust the card. We're trusting the token now. That means that there is no logout on the server. I can't destroy sessions because there are no sessions. So let's kind of start working on it, and then we're gonna answer questions as they come, right? Again, 3 parts to the token. This is part of the theory. Please read about it. There is a nice introduction to JSON tokens here. But this is another way of solving the problem, is how can I keep logged in users logged in, okay? Only that now, the storing of that information is the responsibility of the client, of the token holder, Okay. Can you place a token inside a cookie? For sure. Can you have both? Yes. Is it more secure? Probably. Okay. But in most cases, even if you go and use Firebase auth, what you're going to get is a token. They use tokens. Okay. If you go to Auth0, this is the company that produces the library that we're going to use. They provide authentication, identity as a service. They provide a few services. They also use tokens. It's tokens what they use, right? It's widely used. So today we'll see how to create a token on the server and how to send it back to the client. And then tomorrow we'll see how to use that on the client. I mean, you already kind of went through that. So closing this, let me stop the server and keeping this one on. Okay. I'll do a couple of things here for this, just to talk about the responsibilities of the client and the server, right? So the workflow is very similar. Remember that you send the credentials from the client, the server verifies those, and it used to produce a cookie and send it. Now it's going to produce a token. So you have responsibilities on the server and responsibilities on the client. Before, we didn't care about the responsibilities of the client because most clients are just going to grab the cookie, store it in a safe place, and then you send it on every request automatically. We don't have to do anything. For this, though, we do have to do some stuff on the client. So the server should, of course, is going to produce the token, verify the credentials, and produce a token. It should, verify and decode the token. When someone comes into a server and has a token, say, hey, here's my token. You have to verify that the token is still valid, right? Use that signature for that. And then decode the token, okay? And it also, since it's going to be doing the decoding of the token, in order to verify it, it's gonna, read the payload and make it for the server, right? For all the other endpoints or middleware to use. So that's what this server is going to do. The client, on the other hand, though, when you log in, and the server sends you back a token, it's supposed to hold on to a token, so store the token somehow. And it needs to manually send the token on every request, if it's got one. And the logout used to happen on the server. Remember, destroying the session. Now, the client is responsible for destroying the token on logout. Questions there? Let's tackle them. Let's start writing some code right away. So the first one is, how can I produce a token? Well, of course, you know what I'm going to say, right? What am I going to say about this? About producing a token. Yeah, I might say read the docs, but the first thing I'm probably going to say is we're going to use a library for that. Right? We don't want to deal with the encryption and decoding and encoding tokens and all that. Yeah, there are libraries for this. Auth0, company that does this for a living, they have libraries. So if we go into this website and go into the libraries section, right here, you'll see quite a few libraries. Now, they have a nice menu, though, where you could, on the library section, there you go. This drop down here, you could pick your technology. So we're using Node.js. They have JSON with token. This is the one that we're going to use. This is provided by them, by Auth0. This is another one that you could use. I'm going to stick to the one provided by Auth0, but they seem to be on par when it comes to, you see that? They seem to be on par when it comes to the features. I'm sticking with this one, right? JSON with token. So that's the name of the package that we're going to be using here. Here we go. So you have it there. So we start by first, of course, we're going to install it. So on this server, yarn add, again, we need this in production. So JSON with token. And let's see how we can produce a token. Now, this API looks exactly the same as the other one. Where's a good place where we could start looking to produce that token? Where's a good spot? Where would you do that? Yeah, probably at login. So on the auth router, we have the login right here. You could do that on, you probably want to do that on the register too, but let's do it on the login. Find me a line here where it's a good idea to start writing this code to generate a token and send it back. So we're going to produce the token. That's the first one. Produce token and send it back to the client. So 24.5 would be right here. Here? No, that would break the first. Let's see. Let's try it again. Another one. 28? Yeah. After we know, yeah, right before we send the JSON, that's that 200, we're saying 27.5 right here. Very good. Good job. So here, the idea is I want to generate a token. So we're going to create kind of a, let's say const. I'm going to go backwards again. It's a good idea. With the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind, right? So I want to have a token. And here I want to generate it somehow. So I'm going to create a function, generate token. And this token is going to need some kind of payload, right? Some information that I want to send it. In this case, I'm going to send back the user and see if, you know, so that I can use the user there and grab, I think we saved the username already, right? So we're going to do the same thing here. We're just going to pass the user and maybe just save the username or maybe the whole user. I don't know. We'll see. But the point is that we need this generate token function. Let's go write it. It's going to take a user or user information. And this function is going to use the library that we just installed in order to produce a token. So if you went and read the documentation, you'll see that they have this method called sign. So let's say that we bring in the library at the top here. I'm going to call it JWT, and this is going to be JSON with token. Okay, now that we have the JWT, JSON with token as the JWT library, as the JWT constant here, we're going to say, again, end in mind. The idea is I want to return a call to this JWT.sign method. And this sign method is going to require a few arguments. The first one of the arguments is, what is the data that you want to store in the token? We call that a payload, okay? It's the data, okay? It's just the data. So what is the payload that you want to stick into the token to send back to the client? The other one is, how can I kind of, when encrypting, how can I securely encrypt this with some information that only I have? So we're going to have a secret for that, okay? Let's see if we have a secrets file in here. I don't think we do. So we're going to do that in line here, I guess. Again, it's a secret, so you probably have it in an environment variable. So we're going to say, let's add some secrets here. Let's do this, new file, secrets, that. Let's just have it in line here. So the secret is going to be some random string. So again, to keep it simple, we're just in line in the secret here, but we definitely want to have that somewhere else. Okay. And then the other one is options, like when is it going to expire, things like that. That would be some kind of options that we want to pass in to this method. So three things, right? the secret. Actually, I'm gonna strike that away just so you see the options. So you're gonna pass in a payload, a secret, and some options. So it's gonna define those. The first one is to be the payload. So const payload, and of course this is gonna be just an object, key value store, and you can put any information that you want in there. So we could do something like, by the way, let me introduce this one. It's called subject. One of the options that you can pass in. Where is this? Well, this is going to be on the documentation for the package, right? So if you go and check the documentation, you'll see a whole bunch of options that you can set in there. And this is normally going to be the ID of the user. And in some cases, that's enough. All you want to keep is the ID, okay? So the subject is this is a valid option for the payload. And that's going to end up being something called a sub on the token. And the idea here is, what is this token about? Who is this token identifying, right? So we could say user.id. Okay. This is a normal pattern, having the ID being there. And maybe we just want to pass the username like we did before, user.username. Maybe you want to pass the full name so the client doesn't have to know the full name. You just display, hey, welcome, Luis. Maybe the first name you want to pass in there. Whatever it is, we just have a username and a password, so we're just going to stick the username in there. The point of this is data that you want to store in the token will go in the payload, okay? What about that secret? Well, we define that secret, so const secret equals this. This is our secret. And then we have the options, const options. And of course, it's also going to be a JavaScript object, and it's got a few options that you can set in there. We only care about, for now, for the expiration. So it's going to expire in, and this is pretty cool because on this library, you could say 1 day. You could say 2 hours, like that, even 2 hours, like so. So pick a time. Again, go check out the documentation. It's pretty cool. The things that you can do with the library. If you want to check this out, npm.js.org. Look for JSON token. Yeah, that's not it. And you'll see the options that you can pass in there. Look, 2 days, 10 hours, 7 days. Okay, pretty cool. And of course, there are other options in there. So 2 hours, 8 hours, 1 hour. Let's make it 1 hour. Save that. And here they are. So this generate token function takes a user and returns a token that is already signed. Takes in the payload, a secret that we need to also use to verify the token later, and a set of options like what's the validity, how long is it going to be valid for, and all of that information is going to be on the token. There's no session on the server ever. The server can restart 20 times, it doesn't matter. The beautiful thing is you can have 200 servers configured to work with these tokens, and you can get to any one of those servers, it doesn't matter which, as long as they know the secret to decode the token and they have the same version of your application. So you can scale horizontally to as many servers as you need, because now there's no server keeping sessions anywhere. That was another problem with having sessions in memory. You have to hit the same server all the time. This scales a lot better. But also, you don't need another server to manage. You don't need a database server for this. Just your API is enough, because it knows how to encode and decode the token. It's enough. All it needs to have is access to that secret somewhere, probably in the environment variable to keep it secure. So this is more scalable when it comes to the server side. Okay. I have a few questions in there before we test this out. So a lot of websites I visit have a token displayed as part of the URL. Is that unsafe? Those tokens probably are other type. There are different types of tokens. If it's identity, it's not good. And I'll tell you why. Normally, the communication between, remember that layer system that we talked about on REST? Between your client and your server passes through many servers. Some of those catch that. Your ISP might be keeping a log of all the sites that you visit. So that means it's keeping a log of all the URLs. And since the token is just a string, if you have that on the URL, and it's an important token, right? That's gonna get cached. Even crawlers can see that. I mean, it's, yeah. But there are tokens though that are safe. Those tokens are temporary tokens that are just used for you to go and get another token, another information. So when you're doing, and this is something that you're gonna have to explore on your own, when you're doing something like auth2, you'll see that you have different kinds of tokens. One of those, like when you see those pop up, login with Google, that's gonna send you to Google servers, and you're gonna get a token back as part of the URL, and then you send that to your server, and then your server needs that token to go on, but it's something that's really, really temporary, right? To go and get data, the data that you need from for the user. So some tokens are okay to be there. Those are probably the ones that you see. Some others, like the ones that have the access, those you don't want to have on the URL ever. Not even though we're gonna do local search tomorrow, just to show you a quick way of doing this, probably you don't even want to have that on local storage at all. You probably just want to keep that in memory and have an endpoint where they can refresh it and get a new one whenever they need it. But you don't want to have your access tokens, the tokens that give you access to features on your URL, on your API. You don't want those on the URL for sure. So can you actually show us where to put environment? We have done this before. Is it something that will benefit you, or something you can go and check from the other projects? Because I don't want to take your time on something that you can just go and figure out easily. We have done this a couple of times, Joe, in different lectures. There's one that is specific section. I think day 4 on the first week we did that, and then we did it again on another one. So is the payload visible to any party? Yes, it is. I'll show you that in a minute. I mean, I'm just waiting. We're going to show you once I get the token back. Another question is, this is really good, and this applies to any other thing, anything that is sent to the client. The question is, what about sensitive information? You never ever want to send credit card information, passwords, any sensitive information to the client, because it's accessible on the client. No matter where you put it, it's dangerous. You don't want to have that on the client. So for sure, this is the minimum. This is why I said sometimes all you need is the user ID. It's the minimum information that you need for your server to come back and check the access for a user. Most times when you're doing this, you probably stick roles or permissions in there. There are different names for this, but the point is, maybe you have something like, is this a student? Is this an admin? Is this, we could probably do an example of that, role-based authentication. And you stick that on the token, that's okay, Because you're trusting that token maybe for an hour, maybe for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But no sensitive information should ever be sent on any kind of technology to the client, Ever. You capture information on the client, like credit cards and things like that, but even for those things, you probably want to use a service, like like Stripe or some kind of third-party server. So when people want to pay with a credit card, you get actually redirected to their servers, and they handle all that security around grabbing sensitive information. So yes, you're right, Chad. No sensitive information ever on that token. Only the minimum that you need to do your work. Keep on forgetting to research how to make different user types. Well, I'm talking about role-based. Is a pretty simple way of doing this. Okay, we have 2 things, right? We have, Joe is like, can you show me the environments? I'm going to show you a way. You remember the .env file? Let's cover it. Let's just grab this out of here and put it on a process.env. Okay? Good? Can I get thumbs up on those cameras? This is something you want to cover? You don't have to. Okay, some people, yes, no. I think it's beneficial. So let's go and do it. Well, the idea here is we don't want to have that this hard code in our code like this, right? We want to grab it from the environment. So we probably want to have something like this, process.env, and read this from the environment. Let's call it JWT, okay? Like so. But in order to put something on the environment, it's different from every operating system. So what we did, anybody remember what we did to deal with the differences? Yes, of course, we brought in a library. So we added this library called .env, okay? Yep. And then we go to really early in our code, somewhere at the beginning, like index.js, and all the way at the top here, we say, I want this library, so we're going to require it, .env, right? And then there's a config method, and what this method does, it's just going to look for a file by default in the root of your application called .env. This is a standard file that you can use for many things. So we're going to create it here, okay? When you deploy, though, most deployment sites are going to have a way for you to define those environment variables. You might remember on Heroku, there is a reveal config bars, and you will add that there. And then they're responsible for keeping that secure, whoever deploys to production your application. But during development, though, we want to have that, right? So locally during development, and this is something that's going to be ignored and you get ignored, you have this .env file. And this is a key value store where you could say, I think we call it jot_secret, right? Equal to, and we don't need, no need for the quotes. If you do add the quotes here, the quotes are going to be part of the string. Cool. So .env reading is going to read from this file. It's going to grab this information. The spaces are okay. No need for quotes. And that's going to show up now as process.env, whatever the name of that key is on the .env file, JWT. Okay. And now it's there. Now, if you don't have it, though, it's normally a good idea to provide some default value. Otherwise, this is going to be undefined. So maybe in here, you could say something like, and you could do it here. But normally what I like to do, though, is I like to have, and you could name this folder anything you want. You can call it secret. You could call it whatever. I'm going to call it config. Okay. And inside of this config, I'm going to create a file called secrets. Again, this is all opinion. You don't have to do it this way. And then from here, I'm going to export an object. And the idea here is if I need to use this secret for more than one place, and we do, you don't know it yet, but when we sign the ticket, we need to sign it with the ticket, with that secret. But when we verify it, we need the secret in order to decrypt it. So we need it at least in two places in this application. So instead of having that or in both places, I'm just going to have it in a single place right here. And this is the one that's going to read from the environment, actually, right? So in here, I'm going to have something like JWT. And I'm now moving this stuff there instead. So just don't want to do that. Let's grab this, bring it in here, and say, I'm going to look for that secret on the environment. And if it's not there, this is the default that I'm going to use. So now this object is being exported from this secrets file. Now, anywhere where I need any kind of secret is going to be here. Like if I have API secrets, any kind of secrets, I'm going to have it on this file. And now I can come into the git ignore here if I wanted to, right? And I can ignore that if it's something that I want to do. But normally, since you're just using that as a way to have a single slat where you define all of your secrets in a nice object, it's okay that this goes because you're not revealing anything. It's actually on the environment anyways, right? So you can make this a message like create an .env file with your secrets, okay? So if you have any other secrets like database connections, all of that would go into this file. Now, how can I use that though? How can I use that secrets file now that I have from my router? Here's my secrets file on the right. Here's what I want to use it. I want to use it in here when we define the secrets. Yeah, we need to import it somewhere, right? So it's importing here. Let's say I want to bring in the secrets, and this is on. So I'm on the server. Get out of there, go into the config, and bring in the secrets, right? So now I could just say, well, the secret now, I don't even need to define this out of here anymore. I could just say here, secrets dot jot secret, okay? 2 layers. I'm grabbing this from a secret file that combines all of my secrets. And then that secret file itself is not holding any secrets. It's just reading them from the environment and providing some default values. So now anywhere that I need secrets, just bring in this file and pick the secret from the object that I get. How you feeling, Joe? Is that feeling a little better? Joe? Joe. Much better. So the other question is, what about the git ignore? Well, git ignore is going to have it because I used git ignore to generate this, and the .env is going to be ignored by default. It's right there. If you don't have a git ignore that is good for Node, you could delete. I could delete this right there and just regenerate it real quick. I don't know if we covered this though. It's simple. Look at this. I could say npx. Remember this command: npx git ignore Node. And if you're using Ruby, there's one for Rails, there's one for .NET, there's many of those. So if you do npx git ignore Node, hit enter. Turns out that GitHub keeps a really nice list of all of the things that you need to ignore for Node, and you get that through that. See, brand new git ignore file, just generated, and of course that env is going to be there somewhere. There it is, right there. Ignore for you. So let me give you this command, just in case you ever need to generate like a git ignore. npx git ignore Node, and again, that argument of Node could be from different. Too many terminal commands. Okay, let me delete that terminal command. You don't have to learn this. Just use the stuff that you have there. Just kidding. Okay. There you go. No more terminal commands. I kind of like that though. That's a nice terminal command. I have to know what to ignore. They GitHub people keep a list of that. All right. So now we're bringing the secret from the environment. We're good. You should be good to go because we created that in that env file and we have that secret there. If not, we're just going to use this, the default one. Let's see what are the questions we have there before we move on. Is the payload visible? Yes, I'm going to go to that. Do you have to go to your git ignore? Okay. You can also config that secrets file in git ignore. You could. If you are actually saving any secrets there, you could. But remember that for me, this is just a single place to do things like this. So that I don't have to be doing this every time I need the jot secret. Like, okay, great, the environment or this. So this is okay to keep in this setup. If you do have secrets in there, of course you don't want to have that. Yeah. My .env file is right here. All I have is a jot secret. That's it. The one that we define here. This is a message to a future developer that downloads this code, sees this and says, oh, I need to add this environment variable to that env file. Cool. What do you mean, Josh? Like m.dep and things like that, depending on your setting. This is the React people. They have those. Not a lot of people use those. But depends on what you have. If you're gonna have environment secrets there, you wanna keep those separate like that, yeah, you probably wanna ignore it. Should we try this out? Let's try this out so you could go and do it. You're on server. Hopefully we don't go into any errors. Running on port 5000. Let's try the login. Do we have any users in here? Let's see. Invalid credential. Yay, login. I don't think this is gonna work anymore. Let's try it out. Let's see. Invalid credentials. I think I have Boromir Pass here. Eesh. Let's go register. So let's register the student hire. Send that. There you go. Oh, just return the password. And now we can log in with it. Boop. Perfect. Welcome student. And get users. Hey, invalid credentials. It's not working. Why is it not working? It should work, right? I mean, I logged in. Yay! Good job. Yeah, this is not cookies. There's no cookie that I want to send automatically now. If you go and manage cookies, that's the old cookies, but our server is not. Actually, I can delete that. My server is not dealing with cookies anymore. So it is a responsibility of the client to take that token and send it back. Oh, by the way, yeah, if you go and check the login, we're not sending that token back yet. So we log in, but we're not getting the token. So let's just send the token so that the client can hold on to it. So we create a token, but we're not doing anything with it. Let's say welcome and pass in the token so we can grab it. Save that. One more thing, and then you go on to it. Okay, so we have the token now. I'm gonna copy this token real quick. Remember, this is just a string, so leaving out the quotes. And let me show you something really, really scary. When I saw it at first, I was like, what? No, really? Yeah. Believe it or not. I'm gonna drop this here. Pay attention to the payload. Do you see that? The data is there in the token. Even though, you know, it's saying that the invalid signature because they don't have the secret, right? But you still, if you grab someone's token, you could still drop it in this tool or any tool, and you could see the content of that. So yeah, no sensitive information should ever be stored in the token. You can still read the payload without the key. What you can do though, if you change it and you're trying to send that new token, at that point you need to have the key in order to sign it. So that's how the server is going to be. If anybody touched this and they didn't have the secret, they'll produce a token that is invalid now. But yeah, remember, no sensitive data ever sent to the client. Not only with tokens, with any technology, never send sensitive data to the client. Cool. All right, your turn. Go and implement this. And we've done quite a few things now. We added the secrets file. We added the .env. You don't have to. You could just have the secret in there. But then within the login, we added this right here, right? And we added this generate token function. And we also brought in the library, of course, because we needed it, right? So over here, that over there. Okay, let's see if I could close anything else. Maybe. Okay, you know the JSON token package is up there, and here's the generate token function. Give it a try and let me know when you're done. And of course, just in case, so we define this, we define the secrets. Let me bring in index.js, put that down here. Oh, actually, let's put this there. So this line, and of course we installed .env. A lot of work because we introduced the secrets. Randy, you done? I want to see that code. It was fast. Hey, nice pro tip. Remember to run the server. Yep, especially if you want to test the server. By the way, remember that you are exporting an object. So the key value are separated by a colon, not an equal sign. The library is called JSON web token. Almost there, almost there. Here we go. Typos. All right. Is it errors, Mario, or just still working on all of these files that we created? We moved around a lot, for sure. Remember that so far, even though we're getting the token, just log in and make sure that you get the token back, right? For that, make sure that you're also adding the token here. But this is as far as we have gone. We're not verifying the token yet. So if you go to get, even though you do have a token, you're still going to get invalid credentials because we're not sending that token to the server. Yeah. So we're not there yet. Remember that we're working the first portion of it. We produce the token, but we need to verify and decode it now. So that one's done. This is the next one. Verify and decode the token. Cool. So everyone's done. Before we go and verify the token, let's take 3 minutes because I want you to kind of stretch, walk away, do something so that when you come back, you're still here with me, right? So take 3 minutes. I know it's not a long break, but I want to see if I could get to another portion before we go today. It's an optional one, but hopefully we can get there. See you in 3, okay? Back to code. Yay. All right, verify and decode the token. It's so simple. I don't even know if I need to teach you how to do this. It's pretty simple. Okay. So do you remember where we need to verify that a user is logged in? You remember where? Where was that? Why can't we get to the users? Yeah, we need to go into that middleware that we had there, right? Because this is like restricting everything, the restricted middleware that we worked on yesterday. Right here, right? So what we were doing before is we had all of this checking the passwords and all, doing the compare sync. We don't need to do that anymore because we did this in the logged in, right? So what we should be doing here is somehow verifying the validity of the token. So we don't need to deal with bcrypt anymore. I'm going to get rid of that. We don't need to find users anymore because we did that on the login, so we can get rid of that. So basically, we're probably just going to rewrite this thing again, right? So let's try it again. Let's see if we can do this. Now, what we want to do is eventually, at some point, we want to check the token. And the way that we do this is we do this. We jot.verify. There is a method there that we can call verify. And verify, it's going to need a few arguments too. It's going to say, okay, which token should I verify? So you need to pass it the token, is the secret, and you know where that's coming from, right? You know what the secret is now. So we're going to pass that. And then the third argument is a callback function. And the verify is going to call that callback function. That callback function could have an error, or it could have the decoded token, depending on whether the token is valid or not. It's unfortunate that they call that an error, but this is just how the library works, okay? So ideally, again, I'm beginning with the end in mind. I'm going to say, this is what I want to do. And then we're going to complete all those steps there. So in here, I could check, hey, did I run into an error? And the meaning of this is, you know, the token is not valid. Someone, for some reason, right? It could be that it's not valid or expired, okay? Or someone opened it and tried to modify it, so it's no longer valid. And then the other one is, if you get here, the token is valid, and we can read the decoded token. And you could call this whatever you want, right? I'm just saying, I'm just naming it that to tell you what you're going to find in there is the token as after it is decoded, verified and decoded, okay? And then we could do that with something without there. Now we need jot, so we need to bring it in, of course. Rem, we're going to bring in jot from JSON with token. Okay, now we have that, one less error. We need the secret, so we're going to say secrets dot jot secret. So we need to bring that in. It's going to come from config secrets, right? By the way, when we did this, did we do secrets? Yeah, secrets. Okay, perfect. So now we have the token, we have the secret coming from the secrets file, and we have our function. Now, what do we do here? Well, if I can't decode it because the token is invalid, that means that you're not authorized, you're not authenticated. So we could just say res.status. Remember, this is middleware, so I can return from here for 1, and then maybe send the message, or maybe something like change it. You cannot pass. Oh, shall not pass, right? There you go. If we do though, this is middleware. Naturally, I want to call next because that means that everything is good. But before we do that, it would be a good idea to show you what the token, when it's decoded, what it looks like. So in here, how can I do that? How can I want to be able to kind of go into the, I don't know, the users or any of the endpoints that go through the code to the restricted middleware, and kind of have some information, have access to the token. Let's say that I go to the users. Where's my users? Down here. I go into the users router, and I want to be able to access information about the decoded token. What can I do here for that? Non-pew on dry. Okay, got it. An idea? How can I get access to the token from the users router? to the decoded token after it has been decoded. You know this. I want to make the decoded token available for the rest of the application. What is a way that I can do that? You know this. So the user's router has this restricted middleware here. I want to take a peek at the token. Actually, I'm just going to send that token back with the users. So I want to have the token here, like the decoded token. So my request comes in for the user's endpoint. It's going to go through the restricted middleware first. But when it gets to the user's router, I want to have access to the decoded token that was decoded on the middleware. Tell me a way to do this, please. Yes, Dadian, we could do that. It's middleware, so I could place whatever I want in it, right? The middleware has access to return, like if I want in the middleware, but I can also place something on the request object. So the rest of the anything that comes after the middleware could have access to something that we place on the request. So in here, I could say, well, if you got here, that means that you went to the middleware because it's right there. And if you don't have this there, you get into the endpoint without the middleware being in place, is because you don't have this there. It shouldn't be, because you cloned that part 3, right? So it should be just like mine. So in here, I could say decoded token. It's going to come from that decoded token. I'm assuming that. This should probably be an object now. That wraps all of that. It used to be just the users. So that means that in my middleware, I could go in here and say rec dot decoded token is equal to the decoded token that we got from the verify method. Okay. And then we call next so that this gets executed. We're still missing the token though. How are we going to read the token? Well, from the client has to send you the token somehow. Normally, when dealing with authentication tokens, that's going to be in a header called authorization. So get used to using that, right? So I'm going to const token is going to be equal to rec.headers.authorization. This is commonly where you're going to find the token. So rec.headers.authorization. That means that when we make our request now, after we grab the token, we need to attach it as a header. Let's go try it out, see if that works. We should still have, a token that we had in there on our login. This token was good for like a long time. So this is still a valid token, right? We haven't done anything different. So if we go into the users, send that, we still get you shall not pass, right? This is our new code, but it's because we're missing the header. So if we go in here and add a header called authorization and pass in the token as the value, okay, send that, and users. Oh, let me see. Oh, yeah, right. We kept all of this code right here. So we got to get rid of all this. That used to be inside of this middleware. Wait a minute. This code right here, this code. There we go. Now we're good. Let's try it again. See what happens. But luckily, we didn't get the you shall not pass, right? So we get the list of users, of course, and we also get the decoded token. And this is what it looks like. This is what I wanted to show you. So when you decode the token, you get the subject that we placed in there and the username that we placed in there and a couple of other values that were added depending on the, like we added the expiration. And this is called issued at. And this is a standard property that says this is JavaScript date on when the token was produced. Okay. And there are other properties you could have in here. You can even make a token like a futuristic check when you say this token is not going to be good before today at 2 o'clock. You can issue for some reason that might, I don't know, but you could time box it that way. You say it's going to be not good before 2 o'clock and then expires at 2:30, time boxed like that. So those are going to show up in here. So this is when it was issued. This is when it expired, calculated from our property that we added, and all of the information on the payload is in there. So what do we do? Okay, let's go back, do a quick review, and then you do it. We are sending the decoded token as a way to see it. We don't really want to send that token back ever, right? So we could get rid of that. We can just send the list of users. Just wanted to show you the content of it. Okay. So we don't, unless you need it for something else, and you might need to have the username. So we're gonna keep the decoded token as part of the request after it is decoded. It's useful to have it in most cases. So this is what we did. We changed the middleware to bring in the library, bring in the secrets, and then we read the token from the authorization header, and then we call verify, passing all of those values there. The secret, the token, and then we grab the decoded token on success, and if there's an error, we say, yeah, you shall not pass. And an error could be as simple as someone touched the token and they modified it. So if I take this E and turn it into an R and send that, the library is gonna know, yeah, you tampered with it, okay? So the token has to be exact. That's what the signature is for, to check that everything is valid. And of course, when making, I just went into the login, I copied my token without the question, I mean the double quotes, and added that on the get to the users as the authorization header. We can get rid of all this. We don't need that anymore. We just need the authorization header be the token string. And that's it. Give it a try. Let's see how that goes. Let me know when it works. Yeah, Nick, good idea. It's like if you have a time webinar or something, you just want that to be for like, an hour. Sounds reasonable. I agree. Mario's like, now it works. Yeah, success. Share, Brandy, share. Yeah. Insomnia should allow to edit headers. I don't know why it's not doing that. Even on a get, you should be able to edit. Not the headers on the right, the headers on the left, right here, right? Not this. This is just showing you the headers that come back and that you're sending. This one right here is the one that you change. Yeah. I sure hope we have time to cover one more thing, I hope. Let's see if we get everybody on the same page. Oh, sorry. Yep. Sorry. There you go. Okay. Anybody running into errors? Do we need to share? Team programming? Yay. Team tensing. Are you copying the token with the quotes, with the double quotes? Try logging in again and getting a new token and copy only, right? Go back to login. Just log in again, get a new token. Make sure you copy only the token without the quotes. And try that, see if that works. Ah, cool, perfect. All right, so any more questions? If not, one more thing. We're gonna rush through it a little bit, right? Because this is what I said, that is optional content that we cover or not. Because I got a question about it. I would like to see, even role-based authentication, that's really simple. So imagine that we have this. Imagine that we have, users, and then there's a one-to-many relationship between the users and the roles. So a user can have many roles, a collection of roles. Could be an admin, could be this, could be that, could be sales, could be, shipping, whatever. And now in your code, you could check for that. You could say, okay, for this endpoint, only the salespeople get access to this endpoint. Maybe for the users, only the marketing people get access to that endpoint. Okay. So ultimately, what I want to do is I want to say, okay, this is going to be a restricted endpoint because people need to be logged in first. But also, I want this thing to be restricted to a particular set of roles. So I want to have something like roles, and then passing maybe, a particular role or a collection of roles. Does that make sense? So that's what we want to do. So I'm gonna have like a simple version of this call. I'm gonna call it check role. Okay, so this is obvious what it's doing. And then we're gonna assume that you get one role passed in. This is going to be for, I don't know, only the cells can see this. So every endpoint that you need to limit to a particular role, you can now add this middleware, check roles, and pass in the role right there. Okay, simple. So we need this check role. So we're going to write it somewhere. Since we're just using it here, we're going to write it in here. Remember, this is a separate middleware that you're probably going to have in a different file, like you have the restricted middleware, right? But just to have it here, see it together. So it's going to be a function, of course. It's going to be called check role. It's going to take a role as the variable, right? As the argument. And then since this needs to return middleware, we need to return a function that has the three amigos, rec, res, and next. And remember that Ricardo goes first, okay? Here we go. Now we're returning that function. What is it I want to check for in here? In it. What information do I have by the time I get here? And what am I looking for in there? Well, I don't care about the username. I don't care about the ID. I'm checking for roles. I like where you're going, Christian, right? I want to check for the roles. Now, where is the roles going to be stored? Where should it be stored? Do I have that on the server? So here's again the understanding of the fundamental difference of using tokens, or how tokens are meant to be used. Tokens are meant to be used in a way that the server trusts the token, okay? So that means, and you're gonna see code where you're gonna just read the user ID from the subject of the token and then just go and do a search on the database. You can do that, but this is not how tokens are meant to be used. Now, if your application is super secure and you don't want to trust the token that much, yeah, you could do that. At that point, I don't know if tokens is your solution. But access tokens are supposed to be trusted. You don't need to go and search anything else on the database. So at this point, we want to trust that any roles that exist in the token are good, are still good for the duration of the token, okay? So if that is the case, this is what I want to check. I want to say, hey, on the rec.decode, remember that we have this decoder token? How do I get this? Right here. Told you this was going to be useful, right? You want to the restricted, so you have rec.decoded token. We're going to assume, we don't have it, right? We're going to assume that there is a role there, or a roles collection, could be roles, okay? And I could check if that collection of roles includes the sales role, because the user can have more than one. So I'm going to say includes the given role. Includes is just something you can, it's a method you can call in an array. It's always a good idea to kind of check to make sure that you actually have this thing before you call it. So normally you'll see me kind of protecting myself, doing something like, I want to check for this. And I could even go paranoid and say, I'm going to check for this. Like, do I have the coded token? And if I do, does it have a roles array? And if I do, then I'm going to go and do this, right? But this is just guard code to make sure that I don't run into can't find roles of undefined or something like error like that would break the app. If all of that is true, then I can call next, right? Basically what I'm saying is, does this payload coming from the token in the roles collection that should be there, does that role that I'm looking for exist in there? If so, yep, you can go ahead and go. Otherwise, I'm gonna rest that status. Is this gonna be a 401? It's a trick question. Normally, you want to do a 403 here because there is a subtle difference between the two. The 401 happens on the restricted. This is checking that you can log in. By the time you get here, you're already logged in. I know who you are, but you still have no access to this, right? So there is a difference. Photo 1 is, even though it's unauthorized, it's basically actually saying unauthenticated. Photo 3 is forbidding. And the reason is, even though you're logged in, you're not allowed because you don't have the roles you need for this. So you probably send a nice message for that. The message might be, you know, extra points if you know where that's coming from. Good job. So that's the idea. And I'm checking for a single role. This could be a collection of roles that you're going to allow there. And then you have to probably use a library to do that. Say, hey, any of these roles here exist on the other collection. Cool. So this should work. The only problem is that we don't have this roles collection because this would be populated from the database. And I don't think we have roles defined on this table. So normally what we could do for now, just to test that this works, is just take whatever we produce our token. Where is it that we do that? On login, right? We have this generate token on login. So where's my auth router? Down here. We're only passing the username in there. I'm gonna lie and I'm gonna say that there is a roles collection in here. Okay, this is gonna come from the database. Remember, it's gonna be part of the user. Ultimately, it's gonna be like this. It's gonna be user that roles, right? But for now, we're gonna fake it. Fake it till you make it. I'm gonna do that thing, and I'm gonna say the role for this is going to be student. It's gonna see it in action, okay? Now we need to generate, this is important, we need to generate a brand new token so that we have that role, right? So, right, let's go and log in. This is a brand new token now that should include information about the roles. Let's go and try it. Add this token instead. Hey, the whole thing. Okay, here we go. Authorization. There we go. Let's try it. Can't touch this. Yay, it's a photo 3. So it's checking for the role. It let me log in, but it made me continue because I'm logged in, but it's failing. Now, what can we do to fix that? Well, we could check for the student role because I know we have it. Save that. And voila. We are now checking that the user is logged in and we're checking for the appropriate role. That again, it's going to be coming from the database because you're probably end up having a relationship of users having roles. And this could be a many-to-many. Not a problem. As long as when you get the users, you join and you get the roles for the user and you return that. Remember how we took projects and actions and returned the actions for a project? Same thing. There would be a roles collection on the user and you could take advantage of that. Questions there? Someone asked about this. Yep, auth router. Where is it? Hey, I lost my auth router. Where's my auth router? Where are the secrets? There it goes. Again, this will come from the database. We just lied. It's like, hey, it's got the student's role. Very simple implementation of role-based. Just so you know, another format that is commonly used is having both. So you have something like scopes. Okay, it's going to be string, for instance. Could be an array too. But instead of just having the name of the role, it would be something like student colon and then the access, like read. Okay, something like that. And a separator, some kind of separator. It could be semicolon, say student write, right? That's a different one. So maybe you have an endpoint, and on the post you say, yep, if you want to write to this with the post, you need to have student write. But then on the get, you need to have student read. So you can separate that. And maybe on the put, maybe you allow people to create, but they cannot modify. They cannot delete. So you could have something like student, oops, yeah. Like student delete. Okay. Maybe you have something like HR, or maybe something like, and those they don't have to be roles and the way that you think about it. They could be some abstract like salary read. So if someone gets a list of all the employees in the company, but you don't want just everyone to see the salary of other employees, you could restrict that. And you say, I'm going to check. Do they have this capability or permission of salary read? If they do, now they can see this information. So you don't even return that to the client unless and the server makes that decision. So again, this is different ways. There are different ways of doing this. This is one that is very common, having that separation of, okay, here's the thing, and here's the access level. Can you read it? Can you delete it? Can you write to it? Can you modify it? Okay. I'm going to leave that in there, but I don't know if that's going to be confusing when you look at the code. Just remember that this is not something that we implemented. It's just kind of giving you ideas of things that you can use out there. Yeah, so the question is, so how do you manage that? Yeah, you probably have some kind of UI where you define roles. You have the users, you have defined the roles, and some kind of UI where you could take a user, pick a user, and then pick the roles that you want to assign to that user. In most companies will have more than just the roles. It would have roles and then capabilities or permissions. You could call it whatever you want. Some people call it affordances too. But think of it as, this is things that you want to do ultimately, and then you group them into roles. So that way you can have, so I think I had this somewhere in here, roles, right? And then you could have another relationship in here where you have, I'm going to call it permissions. I don't know if that's correct. In Spanish, it makes sense. It's the things that you can do. So a user can have many roles, and the roles can be assigned for more than one user, but then roles and permissions, there is a relationship in there. So normally you can group on the same role a set of permissions. And at the end of the day, what you're restricting is the permission, this thing right there. Can they see the salary? So you may have a role that can see the salary modified and all that, but it can also see other things. So all of those permissions you define are really granular, and then you assign and you group them all. And you can have a role that has, 20 permissions and it's missing one, and then another role that has 19 of those 20, and it's okay because you're missing one. There's one permission that you don't have. The other thing that you could do is separate out the permissions in roles, and then give them both roles to a user, and then another one just giving one of the roles. That's it. In some cases, you could go crazy and have users have permissions directly. Sometimes, most of the time, that's not a good idea, but it's something that you can also do. You can have users related to permissions too. So a user can have a set of permissions and roles at the same time. And then at the end of the day, you're just checking for the permissions. Don't go too complex. At the beginning, do role-based or something like this, where you parse those strings, just break them out and check them. Don't go too fancy until you need to. Yeah, systems like WordPress, database servers, they have so much that they do dynamically that is kind of crazy. Yeah, think about those things. They do help a lot. All right, that's it for me for the lecture today. Your job is, I would say, go and see if you have time to take your project from yesterday and add storage on the database for the sessions and cookies. and then implement the project for today. It's on Training Kit. It's the same project that you start today. It's going to be a two-day project. Let me steal another minute from you. So this challenge, Web of 3, right, is the one on Training Kit. It's going to be for today. It's got two parts. The first part is you're going to implement the server today, and then tomorrow we're going to use a React client. You're going to add a React client to it. It's easy to do because we're using tokens. On tokens, you can have both the client and the server on separate domains and targeted, separate platforms. It doesn't matter. As long as you have cores on the server configured, you should be okay. So you need to make sure that when you're doing this by yourself, if your server has cores configured, and you can even restrict it to particular domains, particular methods. So just make sure that you have cores so that you can come across domains from the client and still be served by the API. This project, and I think the challenge has it configured for you. So today project, today the server, tomorrow the client. Have fun. See you in Slack.